Imagine standing in a room, the silence pressing around you. You see him, your partner, the man you once chose. Do you feel the pulse of desire, sharp and consuming, or only the faded warmth of yesterday's fire? You can't help but wonder, what switched off inside you? Psychology whispers answers, hidden in habits, buried in emotions, encoded within your thinking. You hear about female desire, but no one tells you about the confusion. There's frustration in the air. Your body remembers, but your mind rebels. Attraction seems distant, like a stranger you once knew. You replay moments, reading between the lines, searching for clues, words said, gestures missed, glances misinterpreted. You sense danger in routine, how daily habits suffocate what once was electric. You realize that confidence isn't just his responsibility, it's how you see yourself, how you stand in your own skin. Relationship books stack dust on shelves, but none answer your inner ache. Trust falters when you feel misunderstood. You crave something deeper, clarity. You sense your marriage teetering because your desires feel forbidden, even to you. Cheating, adultery, words you hear whispered in the shadows, reminders of consequences. Yet emotional cheating gnaws more cruelly, eroding your intimacy silently. What drives you to pull away? What magnetic force pushes you into the gray spaces of uncertainty? There's a secret language your body speaks, even when your lips stay silent. You feel the heat of an unspoken wish. In the dance of attraction, you wonder if his confidence is just an act, or a shield. You replay every conversation and wonder if he's truly listening. Communication stutters, words collide with wounds, and your emotions spiral old stories. Your habits, those small, daily rituals, build walls or bridges. You catch yourself doubting, drawn to the drama of conflict, not knowing why you provoke. The psychology behind this is ancient: protection, fear, hunger for validation. You pause, trapped between wanting and withholding. You've heard of marriages where spouses drift apart, sleepers in the same bed but worlds apart in touch. You fear becoming one of them. Divorce echoes softly, a warning, not a wish. You close your eyes and picture freedom, but freedom without understanding is just escape. Emotional cheating tempts, promising attention with none of the risk. Yet, the sink of betrayal lingers in your bones. You know it could destroy not just trust but your own self-respect. Every glance shared with another man, every message, every secret shiver, tells you something about your own desire, twisted and real. You notice your thinking patterns changing, stealthy saboteurs dismantling your passion. Psychology calls it cognitive distortion, you call it exhaustion. You ask yourself, am I enough? Is he enough for me? You search for answers in a fog of self-doubt. You question the confidence you once wore like armor. The relationship flickers between moments of connection and hours of absence. You crave the heat of attraction, yet your emotions wrestle with loyalty and nostalgia. The habit of miscommunication infects everything, words turn to weapons, trust transforms into suspicion. You crave relief from the labyrinth of misunderstanding. You remember times when trust was simple, when relationships felt like wild adventure, not calculated risk. Now, you yearn for knowledge, a revelation that will explain the laws governing love and infidelity. Adultery is not always physical, sometimes the mind strays first, searching for what's missing at home. You are honest with yourself, your marriage is not immune. Your desires are not disgraceful, they are signals for change, for growth, for truth. Frustration sharpens your senses, every moment is tinged with risk and opportunity. You feel the cold hand of rejection when your needs are dismissed. The ache of misunderstanding haunts late nights, clouding the edges of your confidence. You learn that relationship survival depends on more than just avoiding divorce, it's about presence, the unwavering attention you give each moment. Attraction is layered, complex. You want to decode it. Communication is a currency, but you're left bankrupt after every argument. You suspect that spouses lose intimacy when emotional cheating replaces genuine touch. The marriage you built isn't crumbling, it's quietly eroding. Your habits, even the ones that seem harmless, contribute to the decline. Change can trigger fear. You want security, but you also want fire. Psychology says that desire needs novelty, risk, vulnerability. Are you willing to challenge your old thinking, your comfort zone, so you can revive the pulse of desire? You stare at your reflection, asking for honesty, for understanding. The journey to liberation starts with truth. You examine every emotion, every impulse, not to judge but to understand. You recognize the destructive power of guilt, the feeling that your desires threaten the integrity of your marriage. Divorce doesn't happen overnight, it grows from tiny acts of emotional neglect, from trust that is half given, half withheld. You realize attraction is not a privilege, it's a necessity. Confidence doesn't arrive by force, it's built in the slow acceptance of your own longing. Psychology teaches you that couples who survive don't hide their confusion, they face it together, forging understanding in the heat of honest communication. Habits change when awareness becomes stronger than avoidance. You reject the role of silent spouse, stepping instead into the light of self-knowledge. Emotional cheating ends when truth begins. Relationships aren't just built on love, they rest on the shared willingness to face pain, to weather storms together. You sense power rising from inside, the kind that promises transformation. Every day, you wake with the residue of yesterday's battles. The urge to withdraw is strong. The safety is tempting. You know that avoidance only multiplies confusion, breeding resentment that quietly poisons the space between you and him. You recognize the power of habits, each missed touch, each unspoken word, every shared silence. Does your desire vanish, or does it shapeshift into something you're afraid to admit? Psychology insists there's no simple equation. Your attraction waxes and wanes, responding to tiny cues, his tone, your timing, the quality of your mutual attention. You scan for evidence of loyalty, for proof that he sees you beyond obligation, beyond routine. Confidence grows in fertile soil, not bare ground. You realize you've allowed old disappointments to define your future steps. You crave a new script, one where communication is open, where trust is rebuilt brick by fragile brick. You wonder, is your marriage resilient enough to hold your truth? You feel the weight of expectation settled heavy across your chest. The world fills your mind with stories, how women should behave, how men never understand. You refuse the stereotype, you hunt for something more. Desire, you learn, is not born of duty. It thrives on mystery, on risk, on the unpredictable flash of raw emotion. The thinking mistakes you carry, those beliefs about your value, your power, your right to choose, were learned early. You question everything. Where does attraction begin, where does it end? You see that confidence, not pride, is the missing ingredient, it's the light that guides honest relationships. Emotional cheating is the escape hatch for those starved of connection. You want more. You're ready to admit your hunger, physical, emotional, spiritual. The challenge is clear. Do you dare reveal who you are when you no longer fit his expectations? Is your love willing to bend without breaking? Pain makes you sharp. You notice the small betrayals, a glance past you, a voice tuned to someone else, a schedule too crowded for intimacy. Habit says ignore it. Psychology warns, this is how marriages break. You want to fight for your desire, not let it die quietly in a locked room. You reclaim your emotions as signals, not problems. You see the thin line between trust and suspicion, between attraction and avoidance. Communication stretches thin, sometimes breaking under the weight of years. You sense his confusion is a mirror of your own. You both crave attention, but fear the cost of honesty. Adultery might wear a stranger's face, but emotional cheating is familiar, creeping through everyday moments. You refuse to be a spectator in your own relationship. Confidence emerges with every risk you take, every truth you speak. Understanding feels distant, but you are chasing it relentlessly now. You confront the shadows, those insecurities haunting your intimacy. You recognize your thinking, sharpened by past heartbreaks, pushes you to build walls. Habits you thought harmless become barriers, sleeping facing opposite sides, avoiding real conversations, numbing out with distractions. You ache for a marriage built on emotional intelligence, not just shared history. Psychology shows you the map. Desire isn't just physical, it's wired through the mind. Relationships crumble from emotional cheating long before physical affairs begin. You rethink what it means to be attracted. Is it a spark, a comfort, a dare? You choose to speak, risking awkwardness for truth. Communication stirs up wounds, but also opens paths to healing. Confidence is your weapon, and understanding is your shield. You want to be wanted, not for duty, but for desire. You reclaim your power, staring refusal in the face. The transformation unfolds slowly, as you face each lost night and hollow gesture. You breathe honesty into every conversation, every touch. You learn to recognize when your silence is self-sabotage. No more waiting for permission to feel, to want, to ignite. Your emotions set the stage for genuine attraction, no more camouflage, no more games. Psychology guides you deeper. True intimacy is built on vulnerability, not control. You sense the difference between guarded affection and wild, open connection. You find strength in shedding hesitation. Your marriage is not a sentence, it is your choice. Each habit you shift, every new way you communicate, becomes a rebellion against stagnation. Trust is rebuilt, but only if you decide to stop hiding. Spouses transform only when pain becomes the path, not a dead end. You claim your desire as sacred, a living proof of your power. You taste possibility with every question you dare to ask. The old scripts fall away: obedience, politeness, denial of longing. You dig into the psychology of self-worth, discovering that attraction survives only when fed with respect, his for you, yours for yourself. Marriage becomes a field of growth, not confinement. You study your habits and start breaking them, exposing the raw nerves your routine neglected. When you communicate your fear, you invoke strength. You speak openly about what entices you, what frightens you, what you refuse to accept. You watch rejection try to regain power, but you no longer hide from it. Confidence is not loud, it's quietly undeterred. Understanding grows in the spaciousness of truth. The more honest you become, the more desire returns. You sense a pulse, new, unfamiliar, free. You remember every instance when desire faded, those evenings filled with cold words, the moments when trust was too fragile to name. The pain runs deep, but you refuse to let it be your compass. Divorce lurks for couples who surrender to misunderstanding, who let emotional cheating be a substitute for true connection. You crave realignment, not breakup. Psychology calls for observation, the way his eyes meet yours, the subtleties of his attention, your willingness to reciprocate or resist. Attraction is a current, both magnetic and unpredictable. You set a new intention, to meet yourself in your desires. Emotions are not distractions, they are information. You become an investigator, naming every longing, every doubt. Habits transform as awareness rises. You keep sharpening your understanding, moving closer to a partnership defined not by avoidance, but by engagement. Inside real intimacy, vulnerability is the currency. You choose to spend it. You surrender the need to always be right, breaking the cycle of defensive communication. You watch old thinking patterns, the ones that equate honesty with risk, dissolve beneath your resolve. Relationships falter when both partners stop feeling seen. You decide to see and be seen. Trust does not grow in silence, it asks for radical communication. Marriages collapse from the inside, from the refusal to share uncertainty. You press through discomfort, risking the exposure of your hottest desires and deepest insecurities. Attraction is rekindled in the glare of authenticity, not in the murk of secrecy. Emotional cheating loses its power when you refuse to go numb. Understanding is the light you carry now, not a distant reward. You face the truth, desire demands change. Familiarity breeds indifference, but you are not built for monotony. The psychology of attraction tells you novelty is key, new gestures, new depths, new risks. You experiment with communication, refusing the bland exchange for something raw and electric. You study your body's signals, learning what ignites and what inhibits. You train your habits like a coach, demanding reliability from yourself first. Confidence builds when you no longer seek his approval, but prioritize your own pleasure and insight. Your marriage is transformed not by grand gestures, but by daily refusals to betray your own wants. Trust is a practice, not a promise. You watch emotional cheating recede as true intimacy advances. You realize your power, to reinvent, to reclaim, to burn through the fog of uncertainty. You challenge every story you've been told about female desire. You reject comfort as a poison dressed in routine. You test your boundaries, giving yourself permission to want more touch, more attention, more truth. Relationships thrive when both partners admit their fears and dreams. You see how thinking errors cripple your ability to enjoy what you've built. You name the misunderstandings, you confront the habits that close you off. Divorce is not your solution, transformation is. You honor the pain of past rejections, but don't let them define your present. You choose to see your spouse as a participant in your growth, not your adversary. Communication is now a daily revolution, trust a fire you tend with constant vigilance. Desire returns, not as a guilty secret, but as a right. You walk closer to your fears, unmasking each one with clarity. You acknowledge the times you withheld affection, the moments when emotional cheating almost seemed easier than confrontation. The psychology unfolds, ignorance breeds separation, but knowledge invites reconnection. You redefine intimacy, not as coexistence, but as emotional adventure. Habits become conscious choices, you refuse autopilot. You ask new questions. What if desire needs danger? What if attraction thrives at the edge of comfort? You realize confidence isn't built on perfection, but on the courage to show flaws and needs. Your marriage morphs, no longer the site of battles, but a training ground for trust. You speak and listen, tearing down walls. Understanding stops being a wish and becomes your daily work. Spouses awaken from old patterns, meeting each other in true vulnerability. Adultery loses allure when authentic contact returns. Rejection is now a lesson, not a sentence. You allow yourself to mourn what's gone, lost nights, hidden tears, the absence of touch. But pain does not paralyze you anymore. You use it, shape it, forge new pathways to stronger emotional ground. Relationships die in the dark, so you live in the sun, exposing fears before they become betrayals. Communication is your weapon against silence, your map through the labyrinth of misunderstanding. Married life is not just survival, it is discovered, built, rebuilt. You understand now, attraction adapts, shifts, evolves. Trust is earned through repeated honesty, not declarations. You sense adultery as a symptom, not a root. Emotional cheating flees in the presence of daily connection. You choose resilience, choosing to meet frustration with fierce curiosity, not retreat. You witness the return of desire, tentative, then bold. Confidence heats your blood. Each habit revised is a victory, every honest conversation, an invitation. You realize you're remaking the rules, no longer living by borrowed scripts. The psychology of desire is your craft now, you test theories, challenge expectations, learn from street philosophers and scientists alike. Understanding is tactile, found in fingertips and wholehearted communication. Your spouse becomes the mirror to your courage and confusion. You refuse to be defined by past betrayals, by pain inherited from mothers and friends. Attraction grows where honesty flourishes. Adultery becomes irrelevant in the radiance of shared truth. You stop fearing divorce, seeing that every ending is a possible beginning, if you have the nerve to change the story. You become a guardian of your own attraction, watching every habit for clues. You treat your emotions as advisors, never enemies. The marriage evolves with every risk you take, each trust rebuilt, each boundary reset. You learn that confidence is contagious. When you stand tall in your desire, your partner responds in kind. Communication is now the rhythm of your relationship, the pulse that keeps desire alive. Emotional cheating dies when passion and honesty are reborn. You build a sanctuary from the fragments, a home where no truth is off limits. Your thinking grows sharp, you catch misunderstanding in the act and transform it into connection. Spouses become allies, not competitors. Divorce appears only as a shadow, never as your fate. The journey is complete, but never finished. You stand in your power, desire pulsing wild through honest veins. Marriage becomes the place you choose every day, a conscious rebellion against indifference and fear. You know intimacy is built brick by brick of truth, not the sandcastles of secrecy. The psychology is yours now, female desire as a force, not a flaw. You trust yourself, you invite your spouse to join you in the dance of transformation. You refuse cheating, physical, emotional, spiritual, replacing betrayal with raw connection. Habits are your blueprint, emotions your compass. You reclaim attraction as sacred, communication as revolution. This is your call: awaken, desire, transform. Leave the shadows behind. Claim the fire. Choose yourself, choose truth, choose desire.